Now, my initial response to this car was one of enthusiasm and excitement, and the reason for that is the car actually does look very stylish. Not only that, with two big fat exhaust pipes on the rear, I thought I was going to be in for something a little bit special, but I'm afraid my expectations haven't been met, and I'm about to tell you why. First thing I'm going to point out on this car is that it has very heavy steering. Very heavy steering indeed. And it also has a very dangerous meandering, rolling and rocking effect when you drive along and give the steering wheel a bit of a shake. And I will demonstrate that too. But first of all, I'm going to do a 0 to 60 tests. Now, the wing mirrors on this car are pretty large. Maybe a little bit too far back, but you can certainly see where you've been. The rear view vision is fine. There's no problems there at all. It's not obstructed in any way by anything, which is great. I don't think you'd see a lot if you had 3 people in the back because it's low, but all the same it is very, very, very good. Center console, you've got your miles per gallon, volts, and looks like your oil pressure there in sort of like an analog dial. A little bit cheap and tacky, but it's a nice little touch. In fact, everything here is pretty simple and pretty basic, and the build quality isn't that great. It's probably what you'd expect from a Nissan. Right, 0 to 60. Unfortunately, the roads are wet. The 60 probably wasn't the most accurate demonstration now because it's front-wheel drive. The roads are very wet, so it would have been a little bit quicker, but that'll give you a rough idea. Yes, the build quality inside's a little bit tacky. It does feel a bit sort of like a cheap Nissan. There's certainly no glamour with this car, but it's not an ugly car, as I say. It's pretty good looking on the inside too. It just doesn't feel like a quality build car. Steering, as I say, is very heavy, which is strange. Now, if we give the car a wiggle, you can expect a car to roll or even meander a little bit, but what this one actually physically does is it goes from left to right, like the hands on a compass. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's so dangerous. To do an emergency swerve in this car, you would be all over the place, and it's not the response I would expect from a car that looks like a sports car. Certainly you don't want to be chucking this one around corners or swerving out of motorway lanes in an emergency. Front wheel drive too, you can have a lot of understeer. It is a heavy car, it is heavy steering, and for the life of me I've never come across a car that has that physical reaction. It's very, very disconcerting, and I would seriously consider that if you take one of these for a test drive. Considering the car's only done 35,000 miles, it's highly unlikely that it's going to have very warm bushes underneath. So this is obviously a characteristic of the car. The car is not fast, nor is it powerful. The engine is underpowered. There's no acceleration. It feels to me just like a Ford Fiesta, a basic Ford Fiesta. The gearbox isn't responsive. It makes a lot of noise. The transitions aren't smooth. You know, all in all, this is really quite a poor car. The only good thing about this car that I can find really is its appearance. There's nothing that really ticks the box, and there's nothing that Hyundai are actually even getting away with really. The stability is terrible, the steering is terrible, the transmission is terrible, the engine is terrible. I'm afraid there's not a lot about this car that's coming up trumps at all. I would urge anybody who's buying one of these or thinking of buying one, especially second hand, you want to really have a look at the steering. Give the car a good little shake around while you're driving along, especially at speed, and see how that car reacts, because if it reacts anything like this one, then you want to take it away. There's a lot of play in the steering too before the steering wheels respond. Let's just see what it's like on the corners a bit. Brakes, well, the brakes I'm going to give a better test in a moment, but the brakes feel like the drum brakes out of a 1930s Beetle. That's how bad they are. It seems to me with this car, it's just been chucked together with whatever parts are available, and I would say more emphasis has been put onto the actual style of the car. It doesn't like going around the corners. The car is actually top heavy, which is not at all what I expect from a low-seated sports car. Doesn't like the corners. A lot of understeer. Can't say there's any torque steer because I just don't think the engine's powerful enough to create any. With the lag in the steering wheel, it's just not really allowing that to happen. So that's one positive point, if any. See now, 50 miles an hour, the car is swaying on the corners, and it just flaps around all over the place. It's very, very weird. In fact, I can't think of any other car that I've come across this, except for something from the 1950s. Now, if I do a brake test now, there's no ability to apply a gradual pressure at all. The brakes are either on or they're off. And before they even do come on, the pedal's almost sitting there limp and loose. Nothing feels like it's working in synchronization. There's no harmony with the wheels. This is a very poor car, and I know a lot of people are going to be offended by this, because when I've left a bad review about cars before, people have left terrible reviews. But I believe in saying a spade's a spade. If a car is jalopy, if a car is rubbish, then it has to be told, and I'm afraid this car here is absolutely awful. If you're thinking about buying one of these, don't even think about it.